that Aruvi a woman will not do. And when somebody is introducing a woman, you don't have to like even say,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
You will be a writer or a poet,
True.
but Aruvi will be a trans woman writer. And now even that identity is coming under question
Scary.
because now I don't know if I can any longer call myself a trans woman. After 25th, when the Rajya Sabha also passed the amendment bill,
Yeah.
two of the National Council members, two representatives, have sent their resignation,
Resignations, right.
stating that we were not consulted.
Right.
So it already highlights that no democratic process was followed. So what was the original act? It was an act which meant to ensure that all transgender persons are given their fundamental right. They are not discriminated anywhere.
Right.
They are not left out of public participation in the government because they are also citizens
Right.
who are constitutionally promised and guaranteed the rights.
Aruvi, is this also going to play on the minds of, say, medical practitioners or people who are, supporting the transgenders? They may not be transgenders, but there are so many support groups that come forward and show solidarity to the thing. Because is this also a kind of a problem with regards to breach of privacy? Because there are a lot of transgenders who would want to undergo operations and surgeries, and now that they are saying you need to get yourself examined by a particular medical board,
Yeah.
are people going to come out open? Are medical practitioners also going to say that we don't want to do this any further?
Yeah.
Is there a possibility?
There is definitely a possibility, and this also we have been trying to stress because see, in the current act, there are two different sections under which this whole gender change thing is coming into picture. One is that it is, subsection 2 of section 4 clearly grants or recognizes, acknowledges the right to self-perceived gender identity of any person, of transgender people. So following that, for example, if I want to get this transgender ID card, the only thing that I had to do, so I can give my personal example. I have a transgender ID card.
For our viewers who wouldn't know what this card is, because I as woman and they as men don't really require to have a ID card, please tell for our viewers that what this process of ID cards is and why you really need to move around with ID cards.
Exactly. So it's ridiculous that, just imagine having to be in a position wherein you have to sensitize people about your own gender, or in everywhere. If for example a transgender person who doesn't understand what a cisgender person is, like if the same person is asking, but how can you be a cisgender person?
Exactly.
Like we don't understand.
How can you be a
that.
woman?
Yeah, and somebody
Exactly.
says, you're a woman, like where is your ID card?
Right.
Prove it. You're a man, where is your ID card?
Right.
And that is exactly how our existence is, because everywhere I go, whenever I say I'm a trans woman, like it's not enough that I say I'm a trans woman. If I want to legally do something, I need a certificate. So this transgender ID card is one of the legal recognitions. It is not all of it. It is just one of the legal recognitions that this person is a transgender person under such and such act. And this ID cards also refer back to the 2019 act. Ever since the act came into power, there's a line which will say that this card and certificate were issued in accordance with the 2019 act. So I think this is a fundamental right. It is not that you are giving it so that you are giving me, or you are like giving some donation or something like that. So it is a right, and I'm claiming that right. How am I claiming that right? I'm giving a affidavit, a self-sworn affidavit, for which I just have to. There is a format. I just have to go to a gazetted officer, and then a notary public, and then I have to get this notified, and then that I have to upload in the portal, and within that 30 days you are mandated to issue me the ID card. This requires no going to the magistrate, no removing your clothes,
Right.
anything. So
Exactly.
this is one thing. And the second thing is, So this will be a recognition of you as a transgender person, right? But there are trans people who want to undergo the surgery or who
Yeah.
wants to have their gender identity as female.
Right.
But going back to Nalsa judgment, even this should not be mandated that you have to
Yeah.
have
Change.
undergone surgery,
Right.
all that in order to get your gender verified as a female,
Right.
right? But now what happens is that if you want to get it as a female or a male, then you have to undergo the operation, and then you have to get the medical certificate from the chief medical officer, and then there is a clause which says the person may. That is, if I want,
Yeah.
I undergo the operation.
Absolutely.
If I want, I will go to the magistrate and
Right.
ask for such and such things, change my
Yeah.
gender and all that.
Right.
So the language is may. So now what is happening is that this may is being so one thing what is happening is that the provision of self-sworn affidavit is being cancelled out,
Right.
because you are omitting completely subsection 2 of section 4,
True.
the self-perceived gender identity. And what you are adding in that place, this is from the amendment, in section 6 of the Principal Act, in subsection 1, for the words district magistrate, the words district magistrate, after examining the recommendation of the authority, and if he considers either necessary or desirable, after taking the assistance of other medical experts. Now, who is the authority? They are defining the authority as the chief medical officer.
Right.
And even if you, so the self-sworn affidavit thing is no longer valid.
True.
So if I even want to get this, my gender as transgender person, I'll have to go to a chief medical officer who is going to say, what, get your surgery.
Exactly.
And then if I'm satisfied, then I will give you a certificate.
True.
And then I have to bring that certificate to the district magistrate, who will examine me,
Exactly.
examine the certificate.
So from your freedom, it comes to their whims and fancies. If they think, then they'll give you
If
the
they are
certification.
satisfied,
Satisfied.
how to satisfy you? Or how do you want me to satisfy you?
Right.
And if you are not satisfied,
Yeah.
you will further,
True.
you can further send me to another psychiatrist or
Right.
some other doctor.
Right.
So
And
you
it's a vicious cycle. It can continue forever.
It can continue
till
forever.
the time they are satisfied.
Exactly.
Whatever reason.
Nobody knows how to satisfy these people.
Exactly.
So from one simple affidavit, now how many stages it has come to?
Exactly.
The doctor,
Yeah.
the magistrate,
Yeah.
back to God knows how many
right.
doctors,
True.
back to the magistrate, and also it doesn't stop there.
Yeah.
Immediately it follows by saying that, where I was saying that the may is replaced by shall, because earlier I undergo surgery, I undergo all these things if I want. So that is my right to privacy guaranteed under the Puttaswamy judgment.
Yeah. Right.
Right? This is Supreme Court judgment, right? So what is happening is that they are replacing the word may with shall.
Yeah. Exactly.
When you say shall, the chief medical officer or any hospital, any medical body wherein I am undergoing the medical procedure is directed, compulsory,
Right.
to send a report to the district magistrate. That is an absolute violation of right to privacy.
True.
Imagine all our medical records, like you are undergoing treatment for something, very personal reasons.
Exactly.
That's why we go to the hospital.
Right.
And the government mandates that this record has to be sent to the district magistrate.
Yeah.
So let's say you want to claim a government welfare measure, right, which involves some medical claim, right, and then the government mandates that whatever the claim you have done, whatever procedure you have done, we will grant it only when the when the hospital sends some report to us, and then you also submit a report to us, and if we are satisfied.
Yeah. Exactly.
Right? This is exactly what is happening, because now, one, the medical officer has to send, and two, that is not enough. Two, I have to. I am not, it is not no longer my discretion whether I want to. It's not asking me whether I want to. It says, you have to.
Yeah.
In addition to this, you have to go and submit this also.
True.
if and then the same regime will continue, wherein the magistrate will examine the records,
Yeah.
and if not satisfied, once again
Send
will
it.
send
Yeah.
back to,
Yeah.
I don't know, for further surgery or
Right.
whatever, I don't
Right.
know.
Yeah.
And then like it's becoming from a simple affidavit
Yeah.
to a 6-7 step
Right.
process,
Right.
which basically means it is going to be impossible for anybody. And transgender people, like mostly we are people who are fighting for our basic rights.
Yeah. Exactly.
Right? And
True.
and who has the money to run behind all
Right.
these things, because all of these things
Yeah.
require money.
Right.
To get a simple affidavit, you need a minimum of 800 rupees.
Exactly. And we don't know how aware these authorities are also, and what efforts government has made to make them
Exactly.
aware. Aruvi, one interesting thing that I found out, that the government has given a nice justification saying that the benefits under the act must reach to genuine transgender persons, and that the earlier definition created administrative complexity. Now I have to start by asking you, has the 2019 act been implemented properly? So much so that now the government is saying that there are administrative complexities and there are problems in implementation, hence they are bringing in the amendment. So is this reason even acceptable to you?
It's absolutely not. It's absolutely ridiculous, because the act came to power in 2019 and the rules in 2020. So let's say that for a good 5 years, the act has been in power,
Exactly.
right? And after 5 whole years, you are coming and say, we the definition of transgender person is vague.
Yeah.
After 5 full years, and exactly like you mentioned, you are saying it has created administrative difficulties.
And to make that vague, right, they're actually excluding so many
Exactly,
people, and
yeah.
making it even vague.
Making-
Because earlier at least there was mention of so many, I mean, transgender man, transgender woman, outside social cultural identities, non-binary, etc., which they've removed now.
Yeah.
So are they making it vague, or are they making it even further complex?
They are getting into the muddy waters now.
Yeah.
They are like making it more and more vague, because that is how what the government is. They're not clear themselves what they are doing, and nobody is clear what the agenda is behind
Yeah.
pushing all these things. But going back to your questions, has the 2019 act been implemented in the 5 years that it has been in power? A simple answer is no, because now you are saying that you have administrative difficulties in executing, and then you are saying that because there are administrative difficulties, we will remove all these people, and then we will include only some people, which if we do a little technical reading, even the people that it claims to include are criminalized later. I'll get to that soon, because but even the people that it claims to protect and include are later only ends up criminalizing. So in this criminalization regime, criminalization act that is being brought in as amendment, there is no protection for anybody.
Right.
So the 2019 act, it has been a colossal failure. The Ministry of Social Justice has not been able to implement even the basic right of shelter homes across the country. So imagine when a transgender child in a very earlier stage understands that something is very different. I'm not a boy or a girl. I'm not the sex that I'm assigned. And then goes to say it, confides in their parent, because when we are young, our parents are the first
Very
course
true.
for anybody, right? And the parents, it's a duty of a parent to listen to the child and do whatever needs to be done to take care of the child, right? But more often than not, when a transgender child is coming out, first response is the child is beaten up, forcibly made to conform to the gender, because there are many narratives for this. One of this is you will get bullied, and which anyway we get bullied only, whether you beat us or not. We go to school, we are getting bullied.
It is ideally the societal pressures that work at the parents' end also.
Exactly. And so what happens, it goes to a point wherein the child is thrown out of the house, right? So this limited socio-cultural identities, because you were mentioning only Aravanis, Kinnars, Hijras, and
Joktas, yeah.
Joktas, and these are like socio-cultural identities which we have to understand also have some sort of religious tinge to it,
True.
and these are not even all socio-cultural identities. There is I think, if I'm not pronouncing wrongly, there is Khwaja Siras in Punjab, and then Nupi Manbis
Yeah.
in northeast Manipur. So there are other socio-cultural identities of trans people also, which you are completely
Yeah.
ignoring.
Right.
So that is one point. And now what is going to happen to this child is, let's say for example the child is thrown out. The first point of contact is, because there are no shelter homes for protecting a transgender child, like evidently or more often the child ends up in a
Yeah.
a community of trans people who also, when they came out, had nowhere to
Of
go
course.
to.
Right.
So it becomes like a chosen family, or
Yeah.
or a group living, a community living. So these community lives have gotten the names as Gharanas, like later classified as Hijras and all that. So the idea of equating transgender person to a Hijra itself is wrong.
Right.
Right? So that is one thing. So where is this child going to go? Right? Because this child can either go to some Gharanas or some NGOs, if there are NGOs can shelter the child,
Right.
or if there are activists who can like pursue this legally. Or for example, say if this happens in Goa, and somehow uh, they end up reaching some activists, and through that, let's say that like I come to know of it,
Yeah.
and I reach out to my friends, and somehow I say that until the legal
Yeah.
recourse is done, come and stay with me.
Exactly.
Because the parents are now being violent to you.
True.
They are beating you, they are abusing you, which should not happen to any child.
Yeah.
So let's say that I'm bringing the child under my care
Yeah.
until the legal course is
Yeah.
being
Done.
taken up. So what is happening now is that this is what the support system is.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
This whole support system in section 18 is being criminalized. Now the parent can, even though this is the abusive parent,
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
parent can go to the police,
Yeah. And put you all under behind bars.
and say
Yeah.
that such and such person, Aruvi, has kidnapped
Right. Right.
kidnapped
And
my
forcing the child to be with you.
kidnapped my child, and is forcing
Yeah.
the child,
Yeah.
my child,
Right.
to assume a transgender identity.
Exactly.
And I will be put into jail 14 years,
Right.
and the child will be forcibly sent back to the abusive parents.
Exactly.
And I will just read this statement, because since you're also mentioning, people have to know how ridiculous
Absolutely.
the language is.
Yeah.
It mentions in subclause K of section 2, any person or child who has been by force, allurement, inducement, deceit, or undue influence, either with or without consent, compelled to assume, adopt, or outwardly present a transgender identity by mutilation, emasculation, castration, amputation, or any surgical, chemical, or hormonal procedure, or otherwise. There is no other words or adjectives left in the dictionary.
Yeah.
And this allurement, inducement, deceit, and this all goes back to the kidnapping. And let me please go back to the Criminal Tribes Act 1871.
Right.
Wherein the same words were used under the part 2 eunuchs, wherein it said, who are reasonably suspected of kidnapping or castrating children or committing offenses under section 377, kidnapping or castrating. All the words that I have been saying are alluring is a very vague word.
Right.
All this is going back to kidnapping and castrating, like mutilation, emasculation. These are all adjectives that can be easily used to say castration, which harks us back to the Criminal Tribes Act 1871. And is it just me who is going to be criminalized? No. We mentioned about NGOs who may be supporting. In our protest on 22nd, Juliana Lower, madam, was there from Vasco, and she mentioned about this also. So people and activists who are, and there may be advocates, there may be like doctors who are allies, who want to support, and allies, anybody for that matter. Like you are interviewing me now, it'll be like, how can you? So you are, they can say that you are alluring. Anvesha is alluring, the voice of Goem is alluring Aruvi to assume a transgender identity. So this is all becoming criminalized, right? The whole support system is becoming criminalized under Section 18. So there is nowhere left for a child to go to. And even doctors, since we were talking about doctors, what if the doctor is going to say that I don't want to go to prison for your sake, so I'm not going to. So what if house owners start saying, but this is also already happening, some of my trans friends are finding it very difficult to find rented places in
because there is,
Goa.
as it is, so many misconceptions, and these amendments are going to further it. I'm sorry, because we have had this discussion for a long time, and I think it's an endless thing because this topic is so huge. But I want to take one final question before we close for today. I would say, like you said, that what could be the agenda of the government, and government and politics is all about numbers. Our new census, is on as of now, and could this be linked to that? Because the census exercise, obviously, for the first time, I think it seeks to comprehensively enumerate transgender persons. So at such a moment, creating this kind of a vagueness and taking away the clarity, can it affect numbering the transgenders that we have? The government can simply say, you're neither male nor female, how do we enter your name in the census? Could that be on the agenda of the government?
It could be one of the things that are on the agenda, because if the current census is from the 2011 census, which, as we all know, it in itself is not a very detailed census, and it has been now 15 years. And in the 2011 census, those who were not categorized as male and female, that is our understanding of recorded transgender people in India, which the number stands at 4.9 lakh, which is also very outdated. And but for rough reference sake, even if we assume that it is only 4.9 lakh, this is a very important point. Thank you so much for bringing it, because after the 2019 Act was implemented until today, only 35,000 applications have been made under the Act. And even in that, 2,000 applications are still pending. Right? So, odd 30,000 people have your for an odd 30,000 people, you have given your ID cards, and very minuscule of that have actually undergone any welfare schemes or skill development programs. And also the shelter homes, Garima Gregs, are underfunded. They are not funded. They are closing down. So this points back to the failure of the government. So that is one thing. And what is happening is that if we take the case of Goa, I would like to just briefly mention something.
Please.
So this is a essay on Diana Diaz, who was a foremost transgender activist from Goa. Like, I think every Goan person should know about her. She started an NGO called Vajood in 2016. So this book called Darling Diana is made by a trans person, artist and educator called San. So a very important data that they mention here is that in 2022, Goa registered its first 6 transgender voters. In the 2011 census, Goa's recorded transgender population was 398. And yet, 11 years later, in 2022, only 6 out of 398 in 2011 census have been registered as voters here. So, if the numbers speak for themselves. If even in the vague 398 it is 6, and now we don't even know who's going to, how many are remaining. And also, if I can mention, we lost Diana. I'm going to give you a copy of this book.
Please do.
And we lost Diana in January 2024. She gone through family violence. She went through so much medical violence. And when she passed away in January 2024, I'll briefly put this very important point forward, because when a trans person dies, who gets possession of the trans person's body? Because under current law, the body goes to next of kin, which is the biological family.
Yeah.
So even if the person
one who has
has
committed atrocities.
Exactly. So no chosen family is going to. When
Yeah.
this happened to Diana,
Yeah.
in the final days, the family admitted her in GMC as a male in her dead name.
Right. Right.
So when she passed away, we had to literally go to the GMC admin
Yeah.
and say, we had the document.
Right.
We said she's a trans woman. You cannot register her death as a
Right.
male.
Right.
We made that change.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you can, even within the 2019 Act in play,
Yeah. Exactly.
right? So what is happening is that the miscalculations, because trans people are already being misidentified.
True.
So our numbers are already very corrupted.
Yeah.
And what this new census, and this is going to be an attack on the census, because now even this 4 lakh people which were there in the 2011 may not be there, because you are going to recognize only male and female. Everything else you are going to ask, where is the certificate?
Where is the certificate? Exactly.
Where is the certificate?
Right.
So it's going to be a projection that we only have 2 genders in this country.
Exactly.
And everyone else is taken care of, and it's a grave injustice to our constitution, to every citizen of this country, because the government is just actively misrepresenting its own data. And then if the numbers say there is no trans person, you don't even need a transgender person's council or welfare board. And soon enough they will say that even this act is not needed. It'll be like, we don't have trans people.
I hope that day doesn't come. Aruvi, thank you so much. We have had such a long discussion, but म्हाका दिसता इतले सगळे डिस्कशन करून सुद्धा खंय तरी फक्त अजूनही आमी मुळाक हात घाला, अजून खूप मुखार पावपाचें आसा. आनी म्हाका दिसता दिस इज अबाउट आयडेंटिटी ऑफ अ पर्सन. हांवें जशें सुरवातेक म्हणिल्लें की फॉर मी इट इज व्हेरी इजी टू से दॅट आय एम अ वुमन, बट देर आर पीपल हियर हू हॅव टू मूव विथ आयडेंटिटी कार्ड्स जस्ट टू प्रूव देअर आयडेंटिटी. आनी आय थिंक इट्स अ लॉंग वे टू गो टू एक्सेप्ट अ ह्युमन बींग एज इट इज. आणि आयच्या ह्या इंटरव्यूवांतल्यान आमी जरी तुमकां अदीक म्हायती मेळोवपा खातीर सुद्दां थोडीशी प्रेरणा दिल्या आसतली, हो विशय जाणून घेवपा खातीर सुद्दां जर तुमकां थोडीशी प्रेरणा मेळ्ळ्या आसतली, जाल्यार सुद्दां ह्या इंटरव्यूचो खऱ्या अर्थान फायदो जालो अशें हांव मानन. तुमी पळयत रावात द वॉयस फॉर गोवन.
The voice for Goem.